So today we are going to talk about variables. Basically how you make your program dynamic, how you react to things, how you can take input from anywhere. So what are variables? A variable is a thing that holds a value. First one we have here is going to be the cost of a textbook, which is $250. We have three parts here. We have the int, the name of it, and the value that we are storing in the variable. That word int is what we call the type, and then the name, and then the value. Int is short for integer. This can hold any whole numbers. Like we talked about yesterday, an integer -5 can be 1,000. It can't be 4.5. It can't be like 2/3. It is going to be these whole number values. This equals up here assignment. We call this the assignment operator. This doesn't mean like compares equal to. Take this and store it in here. And from then on, every time we like use cost of textbook, we're talking about the value that's stored in it. So you can do math with this thing by name. You can print it out. You can modify that thing that's stored in it. You can also create these things on one line and then assign to them later. You're generally going to want to have all three, at least give it an initial value, even if you're like setting it to like cost of textbook equals like -1 to indicate that it hasn't been set yet. Show you this is called the declaration. You do the declaration one time, and then you can assign to it over and over and over again and keep changing the value. So like I said, we can assign to it multiple times. So we start by saying int cost of textbook equals $250. And then down here we decide we're going to put our textbooks on sale. We say cost of textbook equals $200. What do we notice that's different about these two lines? The ints, right? So the first one we say int cost of textbook equals $250. The second time we don't, because this line serves to like create this thing for us. If we didn't have this line and we just had this one, Java would complain. Our compiler would say unknown symbol. What is cost of textbook? I don't know what this thing is. So you need to always have something that says what your thing is, what the type of it is. When you get down here, it's already created. If you had an int on that line, it would tell you like you're trying to create something you've already created. So we all have variables for all sorts of things. Can anyone think of apps or something that you use day to day where you might have something that you as like a person refer to something as a variable rather than by its value? Anytime you're using a messaging app, right? I'm sure that none of you memorize your friends' phone numbers. When you get a text message from just a number, you go, who is this, right? Like on the rare occasion that your phone like doesn't match it right away, maybe you get that text it just as a number. This helps demystify a lot of things in our program. If I just saw the value 250 everywhere, I'd be like, what is 250? But if I see cost of textbook, I know what that is. Likewise, if I have my friend's phone number and I can refer to them by name, I can also go in and change their phone number, but their name stays the same. Which is great because now this here where I say like change the price of a textbook, if I have like a million places in my program where I'm using what the textbook price is, I don't have to go change it in a million places. I can just change this one thing where I say what the price is. What if I just have 250 being used for other uses elsewhere? And I don't know which 250 is which one is the textbook price. So when I print it out here, note that there are no quotes around it. Java will treat this as text if you put quotes around it. If you don't, it treats it as code. And this variable name, that is code. You want Java to look up what the symbol is. It finds it here and see what value is stored in it right now. So the variable is, we treat it like a box. The name of it is kind of just like the label that you put on it. You can also do math with these. So instead of just having to multiply numbers, int cost of textbook equals 250. So that creates our first variable. Textbook count equals 3. Notice semicolon, semicolon, semicolon. And then I use my multiplication operator to calculate the total cost. If I want 3 textbooks at 250, we store total cost, which is going to be 750. This is going to come out, result to 250. But count, what's stored in the textbook count box? 3. Thank you. So we have 250 times 3. We store that in total cost, 750, and then we print that out. If I say class main, public static args, int cost of textbook, int count equals 3. Then I create my total cost of textbook times textbook count. Proof, it works. You can also use the plus operator. We call this concatenate a string with like an integer variable. And you can do this with strings and ints together. They don't need to be inside of variables. You can change this to say is plus the total cost together, 750. In-class exercise 2.1. If you put a space in the middle, like Java's not going to know how to interpret that. There are rules for what can be in these names. It has to start with a letter, and it can contain numbers, but it can't start with a number. And they can also contain underscores. There's different conventions in different languages. For Java, when you want like multiple words, this is called camel casing because there's like humps in the middle. Every time you start a new word, use a capital. So like the capital O here, the capital T here. I've seen some people write like putting spaces like my space money. That won't work. Every time you put a space somewhere, it's going to see those two things as distinct entities. It's not going to see it as one name. You have a mine, a yours, and you want what the total is. Like what do we have between the two of us? First thing we do is say int. That's our type. And we say my money, and then however much I have. So for example, let's say I have $60. Int. And what's our name? Your, and then how much money do you guys have? 126. So now what's the sum of these two? The important thing is here that we don't do something like 60 plus 126. Because at that point, we've defeated the purpose of having variables for those other things. What we want to do is reuse these. So our money, it's just whatever I have plus whatever you have. And then when I print it, I'm going to print out however much we have together, 186. And if I change how much I have, a higher number, the result is reflected. You can change it in one spot, it works its way through the rest of the program. So the next type we're going to look at is called string. Same thing's going on here as with our int examples. We have our type, string, we have our name, greeting, we have our value, hello world here. So we can look at this, same parts broken down as I had with the int here. So type, our name, an equal sign, and then the value that we want to store inside of it. We can also change the value of it just like we can change the value of our integer. Say string greeting here, then we can assign to it here, then we print it, and then we change what's in that box here. There's a key difference here with strings having quotes around them versus variable names. If I write greeting here like this, it's code. Java has to go at runtime and figure out what this refers to. It has to see what's in that box and it has to print that. If I was to write quote, greeting, quote, that is literally the text greeting. So that's what would be printed instead. We can use the plus operator to stick two strings together. So unlike with integers where it adds them, the plus just takes them, take this guy, stick them together, concatenation we call it, and create another string. So if I say hi name, hi equals hello, name equals world. So when I say hi plus name, this isn't going to print hi name. It's going to print whatever's in the box hi, which is hello. And what's in the box name? Also in the back, world. We have hello plus world. 5 means the string, 5 means, and then plus and then a 5, we're going to get the string 5 means the number 5 here at the end. With that in mind, who can tell me what this print 12? Do we have any other guesses? It's going to print 102. It does compile and it does run and it does print. Would it say 10 twice? Okay, got 10 twice. We have the word 10 followed by 2. 12, we have 102. We have compilation error. Okay, so the answer is it does print 102. So it will look to the user like it's printing 102. So let's say I printed out like 10 equals plus 10. You could all tell me what this prints by now, I think, right? Like this is going to print 10 equals and then the number 10. Just because it's a digit doesn't make it special. It's still a string. It's still just text. It quotes 5 plus 10, saying this string 5 as a string of text with then the number 10 followed by it. What about if I did 2 plus 3 plus 2 plus 3 plus 10? 213? 213? Anyone else? All right, everyone says 213. 2310. What's going on here? So let's say there wasn't a 10 here and it just said print quotes 2 plus 3. What's that going to be? Right, 23. So what it does is it does that operation of 2 plus 3 where it appends the 3 to the 2. You get 23. Then it adds 10 to it. But at that point you're already in a string because the result of string and an int is going to give you another string back. So we do quotes 2 plus 3, we get 23 as a string. Then we add 10 to that and we get 23 plus 10, which is 2310. So the first thing that happens, so it's 2 plus 3 plus 10. The first thing we get is 2 plus 3, which is 23, and then we add 10 to that. That's to do them one at a time as it works its way to the right. If there's like times and division, those are going to take precedence. But if you just have pluses or things of the same precedence, they're going to go from left to right. So all the pluses happen from left to right. 2 plus 10 times 2. Because multiplication is a higher precedent, it will happen first. Maybe 2 isn't the right value to use here, but like if I put a 5 here, it's going to do the 10 times 5 first, then it'll do the 2 on the front of it. Say I did like 6 plus 8 plus quotes 10. Knowing what we do now, what is this going to print out? Hands up. 810. 1026. Run it and find out, I guess. Yeah, it is actually 810. The quotes here on the 10, like the string is the last thing here. So the first thing it does, like last time, is it adds these two, 6 plus 2, because it's going from left to right. So it does that operation first, then it appends 10 to the end of that. These operations go from left to right. Just because it's a string doesn't mean that all of them are going to be treated as strings. Do things in your code to avoid this. Things to be aware of when you're doing like homework assignments and you're like, if you didn't store it in an our money variable and you just wrote like we have plus your money plus my money, you would get a weird result from that. So exercise 2.2, you're going to have to create a couple more variables. This one, you're just going to create a variable for name and a variable for age. You can set those to yourself. You can set it to some fictional character. Make it print something that makes sense. Are you wondering what's going on here? Like why this isn't all on one line? It can be, but like having really long lines where you start to horizontally scroll is just annoying to deal with. So you're allowed to break things up into multiple lines as long as those lines don't end with semicolons. Semicolon here, that I really stressed, the end of the statement. So this whole thing is one statement because the semicolon doesn't come till here at the very end. These spaces and new lines, like just line breaks, we call that white space. All that stuff just kind of gets thrown out as treated as like one space. There does need to be a capital S at the start of it. There's those two comments that say your code below this line, your code above this line. Inside of there, you just need one variable for age. All right, everybody. Up till now, all we've been doing is typing numbers and strings into our program and just doing stuff with them, you know, adding them up, doing a little bit of math, typing in their name and age, which is all well and good. But as you might be feeling, I could just write, hello, my name is, and then type my name, and then type my age, and this whole thing would be a lot easier. I wouldn't have to do stupid exercises. And you'd be right, but now we're going to learn how to interact with the user, which is really where the fun starts, because now instead of me just telling you type your name into a variable, you can read in the user's name, and then you can say hello directly to your users by their name. You know what websites do that? All of them. Facebook, good example. Reploid has it in the top right. In Java, we have a thing called the scanner. Scanner is an object, or it's a class. When you create objects of this class, I'm going to say this really technically, just for those of you who have programmed before. Scanner is a class. You give it an input stream, and then you can extract values from that stream. For those of you who haven't programmed before, which is everybody, it's a thing that just lets us read values from the user. First thing to note on this line is you have import java.util.scanner, capital S scanner, just like capital S string, just like capital S system. If you don't have this line, if you got an error for unknown symbol, you're going to get unknown symbol on the scanner line telling you, I don't know what a scanner is because you didn't tell me. So you need that import. This line here, I just need to tell you to memorize for now. So I'll give it to you for a little bit. It's like the starter code, but you guys are going to need to know this line. Scanner, keyboard, keyboard's the variable name here. Scanner is the type, equals new scanner, and then parenthesis, and then system.in. Capital S scanner, parenthesis, capital S system.in. System.in being just like the user. So you may have deduced the keyboard, so this is how we're going to read from the keyboard, or from the user. Example here, if I have examples where I don't have like the class main, public static void main string args, just assume that's around here. I'm just leaving it out to make it easier to look at. So up at the top, this would have the import java.util.scanner, and then class main, public static void main string args, and then this line to create it. And we print out to the user, how many textbooks do you want to buy? Underlines the important part here, keyboard.nextInt. Int textbook count equals keyboard.nextInt. Means we're getting it from the keyboard. You just said nextInt. Java would be like nextInt of what? Capital I, lowercase n. So dot, lowercase n, next, capital I int. That same like camel casing thing I talked about earlier. And then empty parentheses, and then semicolon. This is the syntax for a method call. We're going to talk about methods later on. This line is asking the scanner to give me the next integer the user typed. So if they type 5 integers, you can call nextInt 5 times and get 5 numbers from the user. This underlining thing is just something I have on the slides. In your code, it won't be underlined. Good question. You create this object once, like you can create this at the top of your main, and then just keep calling nextInt over and over and over again. We have keyboard equals new scanner, so we have the same thing we had on the previous slide. We're still putting the cost of the textbook straight into our program. Then we are calculating the total cost using the cost of the textbook and the textbook count that the user entered, and then we're printing out what our total is, or what the user's total is. So now we have a program that actually kind of does something. It's like a really, really, really rudimentary cash register. So how many textbooks do we want to buy? 3 textbooks. Your total is $750. Let's try it again. How many textbooks do you want to buy? I want to buy 89 textbooks. Your total is $22,250. So now we have code that can read in a number from the user and we can react to it. And that's great. The next thing we want to look at is how to get a string. So instead of doing next int, we're going to do next line, capital L line. So here again we have string color equals keyboard dot next line. It's going to read in the color, and then we are going to lie to the user and tell them that that's my favorite color too. So if you're trying to make like a Tinder bot or something, you can do stuff like this. All right, so I'm going to get a recap. We went over a few things today. What is one of the types that we'd use today? String, good. Scanner, yes, that is one of the types we used today. I wasn't thinking about scanner, but good call. Anyone else? What's the last type that we used? Keyboard is the variable name. It's not a type. Int. Right? I say integer, but yeah, int is the name of the type. Point of this is the color blue, like the word blue doesn't appear anywhere in my code. It's just the user saying what my color is. If I run it again and I type red, it's going to say, wow, red is my favorite too. So when you're saying hello to your user, in like the lab stuff, it was printing out your own name. Now you're going to be greeting whoever's running your program. So you're going to be writing their name. They're going to tell you what their name is by typing it in over here, and then you're going to print it out back to them.